Hello, welcome to Program with Sam, and this is C Lesson 5. Today we're going to be looking at loops and control statements in C. Now, by this point, I'm assuming you've sort of followed the other tutorials on the blog, and you should be very familiar with these structures. In C, we have access to if, else, and switch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut away to that code now. So this is your if and else statement. We say if variable A is true, then do this, otherwise do that. And if we click run, we can clearly see that the output reflects this. Now here we have the if, else statement, and it works much the same way. If one condition, do this, else if this condition, do that, otherwise do this at the very end. And we can see that the output reflects that too. So then the last conditional is the switch. And this basically works by taking the variable and giving it a bunch of cases, sort of scenarios that they work in. And it's the same as Java that we did before. And you can see in the output that it just did the same thing. So that's the basics of a switch. Now we're going to move on to control statements. Now, control statements that we have access to are like the loops, rather. They're for, while, and do while, much like Java. And in fact, they're syntactically identical near enough. We can do for int I equals 0, I is less than 5, I plus plus. And then if we just say print f %d in loop, and we just then give it I plus 1 at run %d in loop /n bop. So what this will do is it will run for 5 iterations and it will just output at run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the loop. Very simple stuff, very simple stuff. The next loop that we'll show is while. So while var c is less than 5, should we say, and just do printf %d, or var c rather, var c is %d and a new line, and var c plus. So then if we run that, var c is 3, var c is 4, and then after that it's equal to 5, so the while loop breaks. And the last one is do while, which obviously we've touched on numerous times before. But yeah, while, say, var c is less than 10, and obviously we need to put the semicolon there, take this statement and whack that in there. And then we have, there we go. And that's the basics of loops. Those are the loops that we have access to. And that's sort of how you'll do your flowing through your application, you're controlling the flow of the code. So the final thing we're going to touch on in this tutorial series is going to be Goto. Now, Goto is it's a very interesting statement. And the way it works is almost by labeling the code, so to speak. And it essentially lets you jump to specific labeled points within the code. And this sounds great on paper, doesn't it? You can basically bypass chunks of code if you want and just skip to a specific part that you want. And whilst that may seem great on paper, obviously it is recommended that you avoid it. It can lead to buggy code, or the code can be too hard to follow. Like it's recommended that you don't use it. And one of the biggest factors is obviously that realistically it does allow you to potentially jump outside of the scope, which is problematic for the variables and such in your program. You're going to get more errors, and as we say, it's just going to produce buggier code. So here is what a Goto sort of looks like. So I've declared my variable d down here, and I say if variable d is less than 11, go to less, otherwise go to greater. And you can see I've put these labels, greater and less than, or greater and less rather, in the code, and they each do a separate thing. So if we run this code, it says var d is less than 11, because it's jumped to the point greater. But what happens if I do 12? So if I do 12, you'll see that it's gone var d is greater than 11, var d is less than 11. And that's because it's only skipped to the label position. It's only skipped to where greater is, and it carries on running the code after that. And that's another reason why you should avoid using Goto. It's great for sort of like skipping to a specific point, but it will run literally everything else. It's, as you can see here, we've not had the expected result. So that's something that you should bear in mind and be aware of. Obviously it exists, so you can use it if you want to, but I will warn you, people will tell you off if you do. And that is it for this time, and in fact that is it for C. There is no next time with regard to C. We're going to be moving on to C++, which will allow us to do a lot more. We'll probably go back and start at the very beginning, so I'll just be going through how to install the compiler again. Maybe. I can't exactly remember what's on the lesson plan. Either way, if you've done this one and you're waiting for C++, it might not be until lesson 1 that anything relevant comes up. So with that in mind, if you'd like to follow me at ProgramSamBlog or follow the blog directly at programwithsam.code.blog, that would be much appreciated, and I will see you in the next one.